Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you, as always, to everyone out there for watching and for listening, for following and subscribing. You guys are the best. I appreciate y'all very much. This is going to be an episode of the Podbag. This is the episode where you, the audience, you control the narrative, the topics, your questions, your comments, your takes featured on the show. I go on our Talking Buffalo YouTube channel, which if you're not subscribed to that, please make sure you do so. I pluck some of the best questions and comments from there, from my Twitter feed, from our Talking Buffalo Facebook page, and I feature them on the show today. This is going to be pretty much exclusively Buffalo Bills content, and judging by the tone of these, a lot of angst, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety going on with this team. I'll get to as many of these as possible, and certainly I understand your angst to some levels, some extent. I kind of feel the same way. Real quick, before we dive in, and I don't want to waste too much time before we get in here, because I got a lot that I would hope to get to today. Again, my thoughts, my deepest prayers truly are with everybody in Florida right now with Hurricane Milton. I'm recording this a little bit earlier than I normally would on Wednesday, because as soon as I get this episode in the can, I am going to lock into Channel 7, Sarasota. I'm able to get that TV station still here in Buffalo, and I'm probably going to be watching this for the next 12, 24, 36 hours nonstop. I am very concerned. I have a whole bunch of very good friends right now, dead smack in the eye of that storm. As many of you know, I lived in the Sarasota, Bradenton area for 5+ years, 2016 to 2021. In fact, I actually started this podcast back in 2018 when I was living in Florida. OGs of the show will know it was once called Moran Analytics Podcast. Eventually it became Talking Buffalo 2 years later. But yeah, man, I just got a lot of friends that I became very close to during my time there. Matter of fact, just over this past winter, my wife and I went on a cruise with 150 of our best friends from Florida. We were part of this big sports and social group called MVP Sports and Social in the Bradenton, Sarasota area. Again, a bunch of great people, not to mention, I don't even need to know you. I'm obviously concerned about everyone down there. So I'm hoping for the best. By the time you listen to this or watch this, we'll start to have some idea of what kind of destruction is coming from this hurricane. But right now, that is like dominating my thoughts. Quite literally, it's been dominating my thoughts. In fact, I have not slept well over the past couple nights, and I'm sure I won't be doing the same again tonight either. So again, thoughts and prayers with the great people of Florida, that everyone stays safe. As for the Buffalo Bills, before we get into the actual pod bag, the injury report for Wednesday, not very good. Well, the good news, Taylor Rapp is cleared concussion protocol, so he'll be back. Teron Johnson, still limited, but watching some videos, it seems like he's starting to ramp up a little bit more, so I'm kind of hopeful for him this coming Monday. Austin Johnson practiced on a limited basis, so that's the good. The bad, nothing from Khalil Shakir, at least in terms of practice. I did see a couple of videos of him trying to get loose and work his ankle out a little bit. I wouldn't call it promising. I mean, I'm not going to speculate this early in the week, but I wouldn't call the prospects of him playing this Monday anyway, very promising. No Ed Oliver with the hamstring. He missed last week, still not practicing. That surely does not bode well for his availability this week. And then as if the injury report wasn't bad enough. It's like you finally get somebody back and two more got to go on. Two key players too. James Cook is now on the injury report. Apparently he has a toe or a foot injury that he suffered in the Houston game. So he did not practice on Wednesday. And also Curtis Samuel with the toe or foot. Doesn't say, it just says toe/foot on the injury report. Did not practice at all Wednesday. Both of these, according to Sean McDermott, were injuries that were suffered during the Houston game. Again, let's not speculate this early in the week. It is worth noting that the game is on Monday night instead of Sunday at 1 o'clock. So that's a full day and a half. That always bodes well for guys who are at least close to playing. But I can't stop thinking about this in my mind right now. If none of these guys end up playing, you might be looking at a Bills offense around Josh Allen this Monday night in a big game in New Jersey against the Jets that features Ty Johnson starting at running back with Matt Collins, MVS, and Keon Coleman as your receivers. That's not great. That's not great at all. But again, a little bit early in the week, so let's not sweat that too much. If none of these guys are practicing at any capacity on Thursday, then maybe a little bit more worrisome. Again, today's theme with a lot of these takes and questions featured here in the Podbag, honestly, if you didn't know any better, it feels like the Buffalo Bills are 0-5 right now. So I do want to be careful, to preface this again with some perspective. We're 5 weeks in. The Bills are 3-2. The Bills are in first place, and the Bills are in a division where I think, at least as things stand right now anyway, they are the clear-cut best team in this division. So let's not lose sight of that. The Bills are in a very good position in terms of their record, where they are in the standings, and the teams that they're competing with to get to the playoffs and to get at least one home game. That's important to point out. Now that I did that, let's get to what, again, folks, is going to be a lot of angst, a lot of anger, a lot of annoyance, a little bit of hostility, and plenty of frustration with Bills fans. At Global Time 12 says, what would be the most realistic case of Sean McDermott getting fired? And let me say this too, before even answering this. I got like 2 or 3 Sean McDermott related topics here on today's show, but I probably could have done an entire episode filled with nothing but various takes, kind of along the same lines of what Global Time 12 is saying. The vibe, the confidence level in Sean McDermott right now from fans, for sure, mainly fans, but also probably media and content creators as well, is not good right now. And there are a lot of questions, comments, and takes very similar to this. But anyway, again, he asks, what would be the most realistic case of Sean McDermott getting fired? Well, if you're talking about like right now, like you lose this game on Monday and you're getting canned, I said this on Twitter earlier in the week, and I'm going to repeat it again. I think the Bills could go to New Jersey Monday night. I think the Bills could lose 52-3. I think Sean McDermott could blow all 3 of his timeouts in the first 5 minutes of the game in the first half. They could sleepwalk through this game, get curb stomped. And I do not think Sean McDermott would get fired on Tuesday. I think there is as close to a 0% chance that Sean McDermott would get fired in season as it gets. That's not happening. So if you're thinking that Sean McDermott might get fired at some point during the season because Robert Saleh just did with the Jets, think again. That shit ain't happening, folks. It's not happening. The most likely case of Sean McDermott even getting fired in the next few months, I'm talking after the season too, honestly, is Terry Pegula going to sell the team? Because if Terry Pegula is the owner, I just don't see a scenario where McDermott gets fired. The Pegulas want the Bills to be competitive and make the playoffs. That's their primary goal. And they've done exactly that. This team has been in the playoffs every year since 2019. They win the division every year. Even if the Bills end up 7-10 this year, I think they would call it a pass or I think Pagula would give him a pass for this year. I don't think he's in any danger whatsoever. So I say that jokingly because obviously Terry Pagula is not going to sell the team. So I don't think he fires Sean McDermott. So if you're thinking of another Robert Saleh situation, forget about it. Honestly, though, and no sarcasm, the only scenario where I could realistically see Sean McDermott losing his job after the season, because it's not happening during the season, the only realistic, not even realistic, because it's not realistic to me, but the scenario where he realistically could get fired is if, for whatever reason, Josh Allen got so distraught with the job that Sean McDermott's doing. If Josh Allen woke up one day and said, we're never going to win a Super Bowl with Sean McDermott as my head coach, or they don't get along anymore, for whatever the scenario might be, that would cause Josh Allen to pick up the phone or to jump on a plane and go see Terry Pagula face to face and say, I would like for you to fire Sean McDermott. I think if we're going to win a championship, we need to go in a new direction. I need a new head coach. That would be the one and the only scenario where I think even realistically, Terry Pagula would fire Sean McDermott based on potentially, whether you lose in the first round of the playoffs or whether you don't even make the playoffs or even if you have a losing season. I think that's the one and the only scenario where Pagula would actually even consider pulling the trigger. And I don't see that happening. Not this year. Maybe back-to-back bad years, it's a different story. But even if they don't make the playoffs this year, and even if they have a losing record, short of Josh Allen saying, Terry, I need this guy out of here, I just don't see it happening. At Vita Vegas, 5111 says, the Sean McDermott rebuild took from 2017 to 2020. The Bills were contenders from 2021 to 2023. I'm sorry. A 4-year rebuild for 3 years of contention with an amazing quarterback is just pathetic. McDermott needs to go. The Ravens have never done something this unconscionable to Lamar Jackson. Well, you said the Bills are contenders from 2021 to 2023. I don't agree with that because I would add that the Buffalo Bills are contenders right now today. Look, this is the best team in the division right now. The Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC East with all their flaws, and there's plenty, and we've seen them the last 2 weeks. The Bills are still the best team in this division right now. We're not even going to discuss New England. Miami's toast. I don't care that they won this week. They're toast. They got injuries galore. They got guys who are just old and way past their prime on defense. And who knows when or if Tua's going to be back, and when he is, if he's going to be any good. And that doesn't even count Mike McDaniel gagging against good teams, and they got to murder his final 6 weeks of the season. They were supposed to rack up their W's now. So I think Miami's toast. And I don't think the Jets are better than the Bills. Even if the Jets win this game, I don't think they're better than the Bills. They got an aging, over-the-hill, shit out of a person quarterback who's constantly getting banged up and hurt. Their offensive line sucks. They might get a little short-term boost with the new head coach. It's not going to last. This team's got a lot of issues, and I don't think they're winning the division. This is the Bills' division, short of falling on their face and completely falling apart. The Bills are still the best team in this division. So what does that mean? Well, that means you're in the playoffs. That means you're getting a minimum of one home game. That is like the literal definition of what a contender is. If you make the playoffs, you are a contender. So to suggest that the Bills are rebuilding right now, to me, is ridiculous. Now, if the Bills were in the position that Miami was, and your quarterback's down and you got all these injuries and, so many guys are underachieving and your coach is a mess, some of those actually do sound familiar with the Bills. But you get my point. I'd be like, all right, this team's not a contender. Miami's not a contender this year. The Bills are a contender. They're the favorite to win their division. And if, again, you get in the playoffs, you're a contender. As for Sean McDermott getting fired, like you suggested and many others did, again, I'm just going to repeat what I just said. Ain't happening. I don't see that happening. And then in terms of, you mentioned Lamar Jackson. Look, I'll give Baltimore credit for this. They do at least attempt to surround him with high draft picks and blue chip guys. Since Lamar's been in the league, he was drafted in 2018. Every other year, literally every other year, the Ravens have drafted a wide receiver in the first round. They took Hollywood Brown in 2019. They took Bateman in 2021. Last year, they took Zay Flowers. So they've used 3 first-round picks on receivers since they've had Lamar Jackson. They also signed Odell Beckham Jr. last year. I mean, that really didn't work out too well. But sure, they're at least making an effort to put blue chip receivers around Josh, and the Bills' level of commitment to Josh Allen when it comes to that, not quite the same. But yeah, this whole Bills rebuilding stuff, that was true maybe in March, April, May, or even through the summer. But where they are right now, it's not a rebuilding team. This is a team that's very much are contenders. If you get in the playoffs, you're a contender. Let's do another one, and then we'll take a quick break. At Brian P. 150H. This is what this team does. September world beaters, October to mid-November, unfathomably terrible, post-Thanksgiving hot streak. I literally said after the Jacksonville game that I hope Josh doesn't go into his usual October slump right now. Well, and thank you for that, by the way. Yeah, man, I mean, Houston was not a good start to calm your fears for that pattern where you start out great and then you get in October and you get into this big rut. Houston was definitely not a good start. Look, let's be fair. And I know I got to be careful how I say this because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I just got done literally talking about how the Bills are contenders, and they are. Because if you win your division and get in the playoffs, especially if you get a home game, you're a contender. You're one of the final 4 to 8 teams in the conference that makes you a contender. But this is not a great team right now by any means. Not even close. I mean, they get carried by a great quarterback. Throw last Sunday's performance by Josh Allen in the garbage can, all right? It happens to the best quarterbacks. He was lousy on Sunday. It happens. Josh Allen is still an elite quarterback. So you get carried by a guy like that, and you have a head coach who, look, love or hate Sean McDermott, and I loved him the first 3 weeks. Man, I was praising this guy profusely. I said he coached circles around Gannon, McDaniel, and Peterson the first 3 weeks, respectively. I thought it was brilliant. And now he's struggling. But anyway, whatever you think about Sean McDermott, the one thing you got to say about him is he keeps his teams ready to play most weeks. They've lost by more than 6 points once in their last 45 games. They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. That's always going to keep you in a pretty good position. You're not going to fall off because you don't lose games that you should win, which to the head coaches, to the credit here with Sean McDermott, that's what he's done with the Bills. But anyway, those things aside, statistically right now, this team kind of stinks. Both sides of the ball. Offensively, they're just 22nd in the league in yards. They're 18th in rushing yards per play. They're 16th in passing yards per play. That's like mid-pack or worse, both on the air and the ground. They're just 25th on third downs. I mean, that's awful. They were number 1 in the NFL a year ago in that stat. And now they're 25th right now. 5 weeks in, too. Defensively, not a lot better. They're just 20th in yards. They're dead last in rushing yards allowed per play. They're 24th on third downs. So this is a team that's not been really good statistically. And on third downs, they've been pretty atrocious on both sides of the football. Now, that pattern's not fun. But again, it's also early. And the goal is to be playing your best football going into the playoffs. First of all, you got to get into the playoffs. And then you want to be playing your best football going into the playoffs. And at the end of the day, this is a team that has won at least one playoff game in the last handful of years. So they are playing pretty good near the end of the year. getting into the playoffs, and then certainly at least 1 week into the playoffs. But yeah, not a great team right now. And you're not wrong, by the way, Brian. I mean, this is what they do. They start out on fire, and then they suck for a month, and then they start to get a lot better as we get to the back half of the season. Interesting point. Anyway, I'm taking a real quick break. Come back. Bunch more of these questions, comments, it takes from you guys coming right up. All right, we are back here on today's Podbag. Your questions, your comments, your takes from YouTube, Twitter, and our Facebook pages. Pretty much all Buffalo Bills stuff today. Let's continue here with @Aruba136Sam. He says, what's your level of concern when it comes to Josh Allen right now? In terms of his play, thank you for that, Aruba, anyway. In terms of his play, nothing. Zero. Less than zero. He had a bad game in Houston. Shit happens. Mahomes, Brady, Montana, Manning, name an all-time great quarterback, and they have shithole games like Josh Allen did in Houston. Thrown in the garbage. Lots of factors. The line was lousy. The receivers were lousy. The game plan was lousy. The play calls were lousy. And Josh Allen was lousy. 1 game. Zero concerns. This guy was the AFC Offensive Player of the Month already. He'll be fine. I'm not going to back down from what I said. In my personal opinion, last week notwithstanding, I think Josh Allen is the best player right now in the NFL. Period. So I got no concerns in terms of his play. However, I do have concerns in other areas when it comes to Josh Allen. The big one is this. Josh Allen's in his 7th year right now. This is a prime year for Josh Allen on a team with an owner and a general manager that may just be content to not give him the best chance to win a Super Bowl this year. Like, this is an organization that felt like they call it a transitional year. I call it I don't think Brandon Beane thought this team was going to do shit this year. I think Brandon Beane, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think he expected the Jets in Miami to be much better. So let's pay the piper now with the cap and other things. And let's be more back to being all in next year. But the problem, again, is the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC East, which makes them a contender because you get into the playoffs and get a home game. And I'm concerned that they're just content to not make any moves right now and just see how the chips fall. And I hate that. I hate it. This is a guy, and too, another concern, the way he plays. Josh Allen's been hurt back-to-back weeks. And I don't give a shit. Ain't nobody on this earth going to tell me that Josh Allen, at the very least, should not still be in concussion protocol. How he got back into that game, I mean, you saw the TV. You saw his head smack the turf twice. And I can't prove it, but it looked like he might have taken a couple-second nap as well. And there are reports, talking about that might not have been a full concussion evaluation. I get it. The competitor in him, he wants back in the game. I hate it. And it concerns me, not even just that incident. We can argue if he had a concussion or not. But what we can argue about is we watched him go down and stay down back-to-back weeks. That's how he plays football. That's how it's going to happen. And the way he plays, to think this dude's going to be around for 23 years like Tom Brady was, or 17 years like Peyton Manning, or 17 years like Phillip Rivers, that's just insanity. With the way Josh Allen plays this game, that's insanity. If you think he's in his prime right now and he's in year 7, how many years with the level of play or the way he plays do you expect him to be able to play at this physical level without breaking down? So, you can't not explore everything and anything each year that Josh Allen is in the prime of his career. Again, this is an unexpected, to me anyway, unexpected down year in AFC East. The Bills are in the mix right now, as much of any year as they've been since 2019. So in terms of his play right now, zero concerns. That game in Houston meant nothing to me. I am concerned about him getting hit and getting hurt. And I am concerned that Brandon Beane is not doing everything he can to give this team a chance to win a Super Bowl in a prime Josh Allen year. At Tex Buff 77. 2025 is the year for the Bills. I'm hearing this a lot, folks, by the way, and I don't like it, but let me finish here. 2025 is the year for the Bills. The draft capital and the cap converge to put the right pieces on the field to win it all, not beating the Chiefs or the Ravens this year. All right, thanks for that, Tex. It's about getting into the playoffs, right? It's about getting into the playoffs and playing your best football then. There is nobody right now in the AFC to me that looks even remotely beatable or unbeatable, I should say. I know Kansas City's undefeated, but that offense has not been impressive. Pat Mahomes is actually off to the worst statistical start of his career, but you can throw that away. What matters to me when it comes to the Chiefs are the Bills know how to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, the Buffalo Bills should have beat the Kansas City Chiefs the last two times they played in the playoffs, home and away. They fell short. We know why. But my point is, the Bills know how to beat this team, and they know they can beat this team. They're not afraid of the Kansas City Chiefs whatsoever. As far as the Ravens, look, they're beatable. If your offense is playing good and you make them get in a high-scoring game, even though they did just that against the Bengals last week, it's a beatable team. Look, this is a team that lost at home to the Vegas Raiders a couple weeks ago. And let's not forget, as great as Lamar Jackson is, two-time MVP and off to another good start this year, Lamar Jackson is 2-4 in the playoffs. That's a pattern. And they were the top seed last year. So you could have said the same thing. You know, this is their year. The Chiefs offense looks like shit. The Bills lose to the Chiefs yet again. The Bengals aren't even in the playoffs. This is the Ravens' year. And what do? They lose on their home field as the top seed in the AFC Championship to the Chiefs. So I don't buy the fact that they're not beating the Chiefs or the Ravens this year. That's a very quick jump to say. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but I don't want to hear about 2025. You're in first place in a pretty weak division right now, and you got a quarterback who's still in his prime. Let's worry about next year and next year. If anything, you got assets next year that can help your team this year. At Vito Anthony D. And by the way, I said this at the beginning. You're starting to see the pattern here. The Bills are 3-2 and in first place, but there is a lot of angst going on right now. To be fair, understandably so, with this team. Anyway, Vito says, this is the beginning of a long string of losses, just like in the previous few years, and they have injuries for a ready-made excuse. My friend, that is a valid excuse. If they do manage to keep the game close and winnable through some sheer dogged will and determination, McDermott and Cass will surely explore new ways to bungle it all up. Nobody asked the question, why is this team fraught with injuries every damn year? Are they cursed? Seems like it. What are the strength and conditioning coaches doing? As for that offensive line that got Allen concussed, they should all be released. This is what I hate about being get an offensive line, you idiot. Figure it out. Whew, there's a lot to unpack there. Look, injuries, frustrating and baffling. Yeah, look, Trey White twice. Von Miller tears his ACL. Milano multiple times. Daquan Jones multiple times. Teron Johnson multiple times. Micah Hyde missed most of 2022. Jordan Player played hurt that entire year. It does seem like the Bills get snake bit with injuries more than most. I just can't figure out how you tie that to not being in good enough shape. Just luck. Bad luck, I think, in the Bills' case. Someone make it make sense to me. where you can tell me how a strength and conditioning coach are causing and every injury, especially the major injuries. Maybe a little bit of the nagging stuff, hamstrings or, things like that. Maybe I could get behind that kind of theory a little bit. But like the injuries that have really, like Daquan Jones tearing his pec, Teron Johnson breaking his forearm, getting hit by his own teammate. What's that got to do with strength and conditioning? It doesn't. And it also goes both ways. The Bills have also been on the right side of injury advantages, especially in playoff games. I mean, look, when they played Miami a couple of years ago, they won against Skylar Thompson in the first round. They won against Mason Rudolph with Pittsburgh as the quarterback last year. Back in 2022, when the Bills got shellacked at home by the Bengals. That was a Bengals team that was missing 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. So it kind of goes both ways. So I really don't think, again, I just think it's a really bad injury luck, and it sucks. But other teams, you're only looking at it from a Buffalo scope. I would say most teams around the league suffer many significant injuries that really hamper, the potential of their team. In terms of the offensive line, I'm just going to go ahead and completely disagree with you. They sucked in Houston and they weren't great in Baltimore, but overall, this is an offensive line that's been pretty damn good over the last couple of years. I thought last year was their best offensive line that Josh Allen's ever had. None of them missed a game with an injury. This year, 5 weeks in, again, flawed at times, but they've also been pretty damn good as well as a whole. And they've been able to stay healthy as well. So I'm not going to go there with the offensive line. Let's get to a couple more here. At Ariel Grande 94. Love that name. After losses, this podcast is great. Catharsis is therapeutic. Like that. Wide receiver room is full of guys that would be on other teams' practice squads, and that is a crime. Even after week 3, hearing everybody eats was getting old and downright nauseating. Thankfully, I think people will shut up with that because everybody's starving. The spine of the defense is a joke, but that was expected. Bernard is a big plus, and Teron Johnson coming back will be great. And Dorian Williams has been pleasantly surprising. He has, by the way. But the safeties are concerning and hurts my eyes to see that DeMar Hamlin is in every snap player for this team. My God. The roster was atrocious, sans Allen. I'd better see them splurge this offseason when cap money becomes available. Bargain bin spending has thus far squandered Josh's best years, which are dwindling with the way he's getting destroyed weekly. Some really good points there, actually. A lot of good points there. Catharsis is therapeutic. I really love that line. Thanks. They've spent good in recent years as a whole. This was the offseason where they really had to pay the piper, but I don't think this is a team that's lacked going after players like they signed Von Miller. It's been an awful signing, but you can't fault Brandon Beane for going for it. They've gotten a lot of good. I mean, they traded for Stephon Diggs. They've signed plenty of good, really good to really good role players through free agency. They've drafted pretty well, so I'm not really with that part of what you said. You said the spine of the defense was a joke, but to be expected. I don't think it's a joke, but I also don't think it's as good as it should be, and they got really nothing to do with injuries because Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones constitute the spine of a defense in the middle, and I think they're pretty good, but they should be better. I think both players, especially Ed Oliver, are overrated. And I know people are going to jump on me, saying that I'm an Ed Oliver hater. I think someone said I was an unhinged Ed Oliver hater. I'm not. He has some good games, some good moments, splash player. But I don't think he's as good as other people say he is because he's just not consistent. Daquan Jones looks like age is catching up to him. Though I should be careful saying that because I thought he had a really good game in Houston on Sunday. Bernard being out, that's hurt him. Yeah, the safeties stink. And that's definitely a problem. A bunch of good points there. At AEB 814. You know something? The more I think about it, the more I start to feel all along like Beane knew we were going to struggle. He had shit for cap space. And I do agree what he spent on Samuel looks foolish at the moment. Yet it is the fans that think the Bills could have been contenders. Give us some time. The fact they let Diggs go and took that massive hit speaks volumes. Watching the Bills the past couple weeks. Good points. Again, though, you win the AFC East, you get into the playoffs. You get a home game. That makes you a contender. Now, what you said, give it some time, it's a fair statement. There's so many new parts on this offense, and we are being, myself included, being a little bit impatient. 4 new wide receivers that are seeing time. A guy who switched from guard to center. Joe Brady in his first full year as offensive coordinator. That does take time to gel and get chemistry, and they are just 5 games in. And they've had a tough schedule, especially the last couple weeks. Even if the Bills make no move, which would make me sick, I feel like you should expect improvement with this offense, even as it is, as the season goes on. As for Beane, look, I agree. I agree that he thought the Bills may struggle some, even though he would never say that. He calls it a transitional year. And he also thought that Miami and the Jets would probably be better, maybe a lot better. I don't hate this offseason for that reason. But again, you have to pivot when your expectations change. Now you could expect to win this division and get in the playoffs. And that's how I still feel about the Bills right now, despite the past 2 weeks. And even if they lose on Monday night, which, by the way, later in the week, we'll have a full, comprehensive Bills-Jets preview leading up to the game. At MazVids, we learned last season from the Kyrie Elam situation that who starts as a bottom-up decision, the D coordinator and especially the head coach aren't micromanaging this stuff. The position coaches send it up to the wire, to the coordinator, who is getting it done in the practice setting. The D coordinator is the final call and can override the position coach, but he'd have to have a pretty good reason to make that override, as it would show a level of distrust in the chain of command. If Hamlin is starting, it's because the safeties coach believes he is the most prepared to play. Thanks for that, MazViz, one of my favorite commenters on our YouTube channel. Love that dude. He's got a lot of good stuff to say. Yeah. Dan Hanna, by the way, is a safety coach. I don't care if it's him. I don't care if it's Babbage. I don't care if it's McDermott. At this point, Damar Hamlin starting is the wrong decision. And furthermore, I put more of this on Brandon Beane than anybody else because this is a team that should have did more at safety. You brought in, you signed a guy who's done nothing, Mike Edwards, and you drafted a guy, well, I don't know, maybe it's a little too early to be criticizing a draft pick after he's had literally one start. But anyway, when it comes to Damar Hamlin, look, there's not a lot I can say that I haven't been saying day after day after day on the show. Damar Hamlin is like so concerned about not giving up the big play that he's not making anything happen underneath at all. He hesitates to come up on plays. His drops are like half the damn field sometimes. Like it feels like he may as well just run out of the end zone into the tunnel. He's so deep on a lot of these because he doesn't want to get beat. I feel like he's a big reason why this team has given up so much like intermediate stuff, especially over the middle of the football field, because he's just so far back, man. He's too deep. I don't know if Cole Bishop would be better right now. I mean, he got smoked last week. A communication mistake with Russell Douglas cost the Bills a big touchdown. The first time all year they got beat deep. But that's what, I don't know. That's Taylor Rapp is back. So now do you stick with Damar Hamlin or do you go to Cole Bishop? I'd like to think Mike Edwards is a factor here, but at this point, it's starting to be clear that he's not. So do you go with the rookie or do you go with Hamlin? Personally, me, I'm going with the rookie because I feel like if you're going to get mediocre, guys who are making mistakes out there, well, it's not even that it's not even that he's making mistakes. He's just not engaging. He's just not making any plays. I feel like I'd rather go with the guy who might make a few mistakes, but he's my second round pick and he's going to grow into the role, get a lot better. He's a lot more willing to come up and run support. I think he's a more physical player. So I would be playing Bishop. Now the Rapp is back. If it's up to me, I'm playing Bishop. Again, I just think Damar Hamlin is a 4th or 5th safety on a good roster. I can't, for the life of me, explain what the hell is going on with Mike Edwards, and I'm not even going to try at this point. At Brian P150H, is Robert Saleh available for special assistant to the defensive coordinator position? That is funny. That I think it's Dwight Schrute is the assistant to the assistant regional manager. No, Sean McDermott actually addressed this on Wednesday. He's not going to reach out to him. Look, I think the Bills' defense is at least their problems right now anyway. At least when they get healthier. When you got Bernard back now, you're getting Teron back soon, I hope. Von Miller will be back in a couple weeks. Eventually, hopefully, you get Milano back. Other than safeties, I feel really good about this team. And I like Bobby Babich a lot, actually. There's no role for Sal on this team other than getting revenge secrets, to beat the Jets. Ain't going to happen, dude. Not going to happen. Sean does not operate that way. And he said so in his presser here on Wednesday. At 527 Lamont, might as well elevate KJ Hamler and see what he could do. At least he brings speed. I like where your head's at, Lamont. Not really an endorsement of Hamler to me either. It's just more of an indictment on MBS and also Matt Collins just getting way too many reps on offense. He's a special teams guy. On some level, Samuel too. I think it would be wise to at least give Hamler a look this week. Like maybe move him up if you're going to elevate a receiver instead of Shavers or scratch MBS at this point. He ain't doing shit anyway. I was wrong about that guy. I thought he was going to bring a nice, credible speed down the field threat for the Bills, make a couple big plays and really hope digs up around the field. And he ain't doing that at all. But sure, man, give KJ Hamler a look. I'm all for that. At Trip the Man, 65, Samuel's not working because they fail to use him. When they do, it's a screen. Agree on the bad usage, but he also has to be better too. I mean, when you watch this film, you can see too often he's not getting open quick on his routes. He's not working his way back hard enough towards the football, like when Josh is on the move, which has been pretty much all the time the last couple of weeks. Actually kind of disturbing when you watch it. I know he's better than this. Like, again, concerning that they gave this guy $8 million. Just a total lack of vision, at least so far, from Brandon Beane when it comes to Samuel. At Jazz Unlimited 1, get Deontay Johnson. He's severely underrated. Great separator, works financially, and he's in the middle of his prime, so you can re-sign him for a couple more years beyond just this year. Can't say that with really anyone else available. I'd like Christian Kirk too, but I don't know if the Jaguars would want to trade with us. NFC opponent makes more sense in a trade. Thank you for that. I'm not really on the Christian Kirk thing because of the salary, and B, he's more of a slot guy. And I feel like the Bills are fine there. I love Deontay Johnson, the idea of him anyway. It's probably my favorite candidate of all of them right now, except for maybe Amari Cooper. But yeah, Johnson at 28 years old, kind of like a try before you buy. Trade for him. I think it would cost something, but nothing crazy outrageous. And if you really like him and Josh got some good chemistry, you make sure you re-sign him, make him a priority. You'll have the space to be able to do it. And you got a guy who could be really good for the next 2 to 4 years alongside Josh. At CGI Flicks 1719, I'm sick of this. You turn 31, you're on the wrong side of 30. It's so ridiculous. Devontae Adams is a stud, but what gets me is in the same breath you praise Amari Cooper, and he is 30. So if your logic is correct, he'll be on the wrong side of 30 next year. Make it make sense. Said the same thing about Derrick Henry when the Titans handed him to us, handed him to us. Not quite sure what that means there. And he came and torched us. All right, you know what? You're right. You're fair, and you're so we're clear. If you didn't catch yesterday's show, everyone, CGI is talking about Matt Warren and I were going over wide receiver trade candidates, and I'm gonna throw him under the bus here, man. My guy Matt said that at his age, 32 years old with Devontae, that was a factor. Wrong. He said the wrong side of 30. When Amari Cooper's 30, and he's going to be 31 as well. So, again, I'm throwing my guy Matt under the bus with the age thing. My problem with Devontae Adams is more about what you'd have to give up to go get him, which would be very likely for just a half season compared to the other candidates. At 32 years old, you're probably giving up a second and something else because the only way you're making it happen is if you get the Raiders to eat a lot of his salary, which they very much don't want to do. I'd also be at least like a little concerned about what an alpha like Devontae Adams would be like, his chemistry with Josh. Not a lot of time to build that. I mean, even if you traded for him, say in the next week or so, you're talking that's already going into week 7, maybe doesn't even play to week 8. So about half the season. It's not a hell of a lot of time. When I like Devontae Adams, I mean, yes, you'd have to be an idiot not to, be stupid to not want him as a Buffalo Bill. Dude is still a top 5 receiver in this league. Top 5 to 7 at worst. I just don't see it. But it's a fair point about the age thing. You can't call Devontae Adams old, wrong side of 30, and then not include pretty much the same thing about Amari Cooper. So that's all the Bill stuff here. One last point. I'm going to throw this out here. Kevin Webster, 9166 says, I love listening to you. You say what everyone feels. Well, I can assure you, Kevin, I do not say what everyone feels. I appreciate the compliment. Everyone's not feeling like what I say. Maybe it's not even in the majority, but I really do truly appreciate you saying that. And I appreciate everybody for listening and watching this show. Like I said before we got going, you could tell by those questions, comments, and takes, a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry right now with this football team, and understandably so. When you lose, it's a week-to-week league, and when you lose 2 games, like the Bills have, one they're completely dominated, which makes you think, are they good enough? And then they come back the next week, and they're down early, and they come back, and then they lose a game that many people feel they should have won, where a weakness on that Sunday was your head coach who screwed up and an offensive coordinator who made a lot of mistakes. So it's on the coaches as much as the players. That's the kind of loss that makes you wonder, as has been every year now for the last handful of years, is Sean McDermott that guy? A lot of angst building up towards him. Without getting in too much into the Jets game on Monday, I've said all along, this is a very big game. A very big game. I considered Baltimore and Houston opportunities, especially once you get off the 3-0 start. I'm like, you want to win those games. But if you start out 3-0, you lose 2 tough road games, but you beat the Jets, you're 4-2. You beat in Miami and you beat in the Jets, both on the road. You are in very much in control of your division if you win. But if you lose, now you're 3-3. You've lost 3 in a row on the road. Can you play on the road? Is this, the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, and just a weak supporting cast? There's lots of questions. And the pendulum has swung a little bit momentum-wise, anyway, in favor of the Jets between them firing their coach, because that usually does give you a little bit of a short-term boost, although they are coming back from London, and usually you tend to be a little sloppy when you come back from overseas. But anyway, you got that going for the Jets. Plus, they know they need to win this game. And then on the Bills side, it's just about health and injuries right now. I mean, you get Taylor Rapp back, which, whatever, cool. But now you got Shakir, very iffy. We'll say that. Very iffy to play. Ed Oliver not practicing, very iffy. And now you got James Cook and Curtis Samuel both added to the injury list as well. It's wild. Like I said, we'll have a preview later on in this week. In fact, we'll have it on Friday and a little bit Monday as well. That's going to do it for this episode. Again, one more time, big thank you to everyone out there. I do appreciate y'all. Come back. Brand new show tomorrow.